Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Going back to the introduction of the member's speech, he implied and said that this government is not interested in helping Canadians. You know, over the summertime, Madam Speaker, I met an individual named George. George ran up to me with his brand new Canada Dental Care Plan card, showing it so proudly to me and pointing to 2 teeth missing in his 2 top front teeth, pointing to them saying, I can get my teeth fixed now because of this plan. George probably didn't even really understand or care, for that matter, who was responsible for the plan, how it got there, but he knew that he could finally get his teeth fixed after years of not being able to do so because he couldn't afford to, is what he told me. So I just want to know if the member from my neighboring colleague can just tell George if he can still expect to be able to rely on a dental care program if Conservatives form government. Every Conservative asked that to this point has evaded answering the question. Will this member just tell George that he can rely on that program or not if Conservatives are elected?
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Regional Lakes.
9 years. 9 years of an NDP Liberal government with multiple cabinet ministers and the member that's heckling, the Liberal member, the Liberal member who just asked the question, voting against Auditor General investigations to the scandals perpetrated under their Prime Minister.
Under why?
It's a shocking failure of their responsibility to Canadians, their fiduciary responsibility, their moral responsibility to uphold the trust that Canadians put in us when we come here. So let's get to it. Let's talk about their failure to protect Canadians from the corruption of that Prime Minister.
Le député de Trois-Rivières.
I'd like to thank my colleague for his speech. My problem with this speech is that I listen closely to what he is saying, but all the hyperbole that he used made it sound like we're living in Kazakhstan. But even worse, this vision that he painted for us today, does that really exist in Canada?
Thousand Islands, Regional Lakes.
Well, the vision that I paint about what happens in Canada is evidenced on the streets in communities across this country, in every province, including Quebec, where people are lined up at food banks, tent cities, devastating destruction and despair and death even. And this wasn't something that happened before the destructive policies of that NDP Liberal government, and we're going to fix it. And I'm very hopeful for what our country has in store because it's built on such a strong foundation, and they haven't been able to destroy it in 9 years. Life wasn't like this before that Prime Minister, and it's not going to be like it after him.